27th chapter, isn't it? Yes, we are in the midst or more than half of 27th chapter is finished. Sevenfold God of Being, that is the title, and we came to nearly more than half because it's a continuation of the one that precedes. Yes, ascending series of substance, that is 26, and sevenfold chord of being. These are interconnected. We are speaking with even the one that goes before. Chapter 25th, dealing with matter. We dealt with matter, then ascending series of substance, and then sevenfold chord of being. These three seem to be connected with each other. They are, so to say, related chapters. They bring clarity about the explanation of origin of matter to in relation with the transcendent infinite existence, consciousness, and bliss, which is the nature of the divine being. That is the nature of the divine being. And these three chapters make the connection clear. There, the nature of the divine being infinite consciousness, existence, and bliss, the aspect of consciousness contains or includes two aspects, knowledge and power. You can call it, if you like, illumination and effective force, will and knowledge, or illuminating power, or illumination and effective force. Well, this being the nature of the divine being, it operates and brings first the truth world into existence, which we have called the truth consciousness, operating with the real idea, creating the world with the power of the real idea, conceived as a vision of the self of the infinite consciousness, existence, and bliss. And this supermind or real idea, operating with the real idea, has two aspects, comprehensive and apprehensive. In the comprehensive aspect, the all is included as the one or known as the one. The all is fixed into the one, so to say, and as one, all things in their manifold aspect are seen and put into operation. In the apprehensive aspect, each object or each personality or each thing is apprehended separately from the all, yet without losing the connection with the all. The concentration is on the individual aspect of eachness of each. Well, that operates and creates by descent mind, life, and matter subsequently. And we saw that even in this world of matter, based upon what appears to be the principle of inconscience, there is a rising scale of manifestation, rising, plane of evolution visible from matter to life, life to mind. This we see actually in operation. Therefore, the conclusion or corollary follows that no law that operates in the world or in the manifestation as we know it is an absolute law, because only the infinite can be absolute. Potentialities of the infinite, when it is manifesting, are endless, and therefore they cannot be determined. The form and the course of evolution cannot be fixed down to a rigid formula. Infinite would not be infinite if it has not complete freedom to assume manifold finiteness. Absolute must have, therefore, complete or boundless liberty or freedom of self determination. That is why no law is binding, because the potentiality is infinite. And in this arrangement and scheme of self determination of the Supreme, mind, life, and matter are also needed. They are acting to the mind of the human consciousness as, well, forces of ignorance, so to say. The triplicity, body, life, and mind, or matter, life, and mind, seem to be within the formula of ignorance to the mind. But looked at from the top of point of view of the higher consciousness or supermind, they three are needed. Needed in the sense that mind is needed in order, as we said, to create a self diffusion of the Supreme in the universal or to create infinite centers without determining or limiting action, there would not be any cosmos. Such a limiting or determining action, we would not have a world of one and the many. And mind makes this determination for the infinite, therefore it is necessary. Only it is a subordinate term of the supermind, and so is life, and so is matter. A substance, a world of substance in which everything seems to be first divided and brings the substance of the original Brahman or infinite into materiality, the final point of subdivision or final point of finiteness. The second thing that follows from this is that even though a cosmos or a universe presents to us one front, we see the world matter. We see another plane life. We see third plane mind. Now each seems to present one front, and it may present a front only one side of this principle of substance, but that is only an appearance, because when one is there, all the others are also there included. In each principle, all the others are included. When you say of matter, well, in matter, mind is included, life is included, supermind is included. When you say of life, well, matter is included, mind, all the other principles are included. So when one is there, all the others are there, present or latent. They may be manifested or they may be latent. And in a world, all the seven, therefore, may be working at the same time. In another, they may be involved. You see, they may be involved. And evolution of the sevenfold power of being is therefore the destiny of this process of evolution. Therefore, matter has already evolved life, has already evolved mind, and must, by the logic of events or logic of our thinking, well, it must evolve the supermind because it is there involved. Therefore, no law is binding, and one aspect is not the last aspect. You see, the two things you must bear in mind. Because there are people who think along different lines and saying that mind being final, there is no escape from the mind, and mind cannot be overpassed. Or people say that this universe is bound to the present formula, and the laws are binding. The two have been answered here in one way. The supermind, now hidden, and there is apparent supermind is already working through mind, life, and body. But the hidden supermind in its purity, in its higher aspect, well, the question then you can say, is Earth the scene of this manifestation? And have mind, life, and matter or body put a limit to the operation of the supermind? That is a question really we have to answer. And he says, according to his thinking, the full growth of all the powers of substance must manifest in each. And as matter has already manifested life and mind, it should certainly be capable of manifesting supermind and Sachidananda here. Well, that brings you to the sevenfold chord of being. You see, that end of the chapter. Now, in the 28th chapter, we take up the subject of the overmind. And in that connection, the three things supermind, mind, and overmind. This is the title of the chapter, showing that he wants to deal in this chapter with the relation between the supermind and mind, and overmind being an intermediate term. Because he says that how did this lapse into ignorance of mind, life, and body take place from the truth consciousness, from the supermind? Truth consciousness is the first projection of the divine, nature of the divine being, the Vignan, supermind. Now, how did it lapse into mind? This lapse is not yet explained, he says. We have not dealt with it because mind is consciousness of division. Mind is being a consciousness of division, is the basis of ignorance. Supermind being based on the infinite consciousness, existence, and bliss is founded on truth, is based on reality. How did this division then come in the indivisible supermind? That is the question he is trying to put. What was the actual action by which this took place? And I think in that respect, some little explanation becomes necessary. That let's conceive of the supermind as this truth consciousness as the sun. This is truth consciousness. Now, if that is the sun, the rays of the sun operate all round. Now, you know, in astronomy, that there is a corona of the sun's light. There is a corona of the sun's light. Corona is the the surrounding aura of light which surrounds the body of the sun. When there is a total eclipse of the sun, you see the corona, the lighted region round the edge of the sun's circumference. The circumference of the sun here is lighted altogether by this region. Now, imagine this region going further and further. This light going further. When this goes further, now this is the region of the overmind. You see, the one in which the corona of the sunlight, this is the truth consciousness, this is the supermind, the truth consciousness, the first projection out of the infinite consciousness, existence and bliss. This is the real idea working here. And the light working here is the overmind. It is from there that the mind here takes place. You see, the penetration of light takes place to mind. Till when it goes to the inconscient, now take another aspect, you see. This is the overmind, this is supermind, this is overmind. And when it goes on penetrating further and further, it comes here into the inconscient. In the inconscient, the whole of the light is absorbed, and this becomes a dark shadow. That becomes a complete dark shadow. You see? He is explaining the descent of the supermind, how the lapse from the truth consciousness into the divided or indivisible consciousness of the supermind into a divided consciousness mind takes place. Mind is separative and is divided consciousness. Now, how does mind come into existence from the supermind? What is the gradation of descent? He is explaining that first, there is a powerful aura or corona of the sunlight of the supermind, which is overmind, in which the contact of the body of the sun is not lost. But as it goes further, here, when you proceed from here, man is posted here. That is man. So he feels there is a division, you see. The light is cut off, and he believes that he is proceeding from here rather than the light is coming from there. You see, man feels, being in the mind, that he is throwing light. Of course, partly it is true. But you see, really speaking, in the process of creation, the descent took place from here to here. And therefore, this became a region of division, not complete darkness yet. The complete darkness comes, you see, here you will find. The first is this mind and life. And here you come to the matter. And below the matter, you find the whole of the light is absorbed. And a shadow, so to say, a darkness is thrown back like a shadow of the light, which we feel as if there is no consciousness in matter. That's what we say. You see, because going gradually, the light is absorbed more and more. You can take another aspect of it also if you like. You can take a second alternative. You see? You take the alternative of a lamp. You see? You take a lamp, an electric lamp, and you put one shade. You put a second shade. You put a third shade. You put a fourth shade. You see, you go on. And when it comes here, you don't see anything. Is it not? This is full light. First is transparent. Therefore, here there is a lot of light. This is glass, suppose. This is transparent paper. So you can see it even here, light. Well, here it is a little thicker paper. So here you see vaguely that there is some light. But if you put a piece of wood here at the last, well, nothing can be seen, though light is inside. Light is present. You see? Well, that is matter. That's another way of putting the process of descent of the Truth consciousness, creative of the cosmos, creative of this world as we know it. Well, now, what was the point?
How did this lapse take place? You were telling us.
Yes, that's it. Um, Mind is the power of ignorance and division. It is seeking for the truth, groping, reaching only mental construction. When mind is trying to go up, it is trying to reach only, it reaches only mental constructions, mental representations, and shadowy, sometimes bright photographs, but shadowy photographs of the reality. That is what the mind is getting. And this mind is subjected to the limitation of body and life. It is not even free when it operates with a body and mind. Body limits its operation, so does life. And yet, if you try to see even the operation of the mind, freest mind in its own right seems to be limited. But there are occasions where mind is all the time trying to reach beyond itself. You see, it's trying to go beyond that limit which I put in the corona of the overmind. You see, mind is trying to overpass the barrier, so to say. And it has succeeded up till now. Mind has, if you repeat that process of overmind creation as we put it there, you will see that if that is the truth consciousness, son of the truth, truth's consciousness as the sun and the corona of the overmind as its surrounding light, mind is here. And mind is trying to penetrate this division, dividing line. And when it tries to go, it is able to penetrate to some extent into this, you see, to some extent by trying to. What is the form in which mind is trying to get into? If this is a strict limit of mind, and this is a strict limit of the overmind, this is overmind. This is mind, human mind, you see? And now between the two, there is a region which connects the two, you see? Mind, when it first tries to penetrate, gets into this region. In this region, it is that mind is able to experience intuition, inspiration, an impersonal cosmic consciousness, genius, phenomena of genius. You see, people have extraordinary power over certain subjects, or revelation, intuitive perception, or intuitive discernment, and number of mystical experiences. Mystical experiences in which one knows things without any process of reasoning, process of logic. Well, that shows that the connecting region is there between mind and overmind, overmind being the first step towards creation of mind. So, the light of the overmind, supermind consciousness, moving toward creation of the mind, passes through an intermediate stage called the overmind. The ascent from mind to the supermind cannot be sudden. Why he puts it here is that in practice of yoga, the most difficult part is to ascend directly from mind to the supramental consciousness is too big and too long a jump. You see, from mind straight to get into the supermind almost is abnormal and difficult for men to manage, to bear, to support the process itself. And he found that it is necessary to have an intermediate station, just as you want to have an intermediate station in this space before you go to the Venus or moon. You see, there must be something circling around where you go and refuel, is it not? You have to refuel to reach the moon. So you have to first have an intermediate station. Well, this intermediate station, when mind is trying to go beyond its own range, is this overmind. It is here. So mind first passes through intuition, inspiration, revelation, intuitive discrimination, genius, or capacity of an impersonal attitude or mystic experiences which brings it in contact here. And it is here that it first enters and stops for some time. Then it is able to enter and make an approach to the truth consciousness, because approach direct from mind to this is too big in length. It has to pass through this. This is all the time penetrating, and mind is also trying counter penetration. So that it is the exchange between the overmind and supermind which gives the intermediate station to the ascending consciousness of man, making his contact with the supermind possible through the descending step of the overmind. Supermind, as we saw, is a truth conscious reality or real idea. And transitions are that there are gradations, and the gradations of the supermind also are certainly superconscious to mind. The gradation by which supermind descends are not mental gradations, and therefore mind, when it begins from below, it cannot know the gradation of the descent of the supermind. Mind cannot communicate with this, just as you why mind communicate not can't communicate with animal easily. You can't easily communicate with animal consciousness unless you train yourself. Though it is known to each other, I mean, in certain respect, there is a correspondence and an interchange, and still mind is not able to know the operation of animal consciousness. Well, the same thing happens with regard to the mind trying to know the supramental, it cannot know. Just as one doesn't know animal consciousness, well, the mind consciousness is not able to know the over mind consciousness. So superconscient also is there to mind, just as mind doesn't know what is below, mind doesn't know what is above. The transition is there between the supermind and matter, or supermind and the lower creation, taking three steps: mind, life, and matter. And you will see that there will be two movements to arrive at this gradation by mind. If mind wants to ascend back, it can do by a double movement. First, the movement is inward. When the mind goes inward, the mental consciousness, when I say mind, I mean organized mental consciousness of man. So when it goes inwards, it goes into the subliminal. It goes into the subliminal, and the veil has to be rent between the external and the internal. When the veil is rent, veil is cut and removed, then it opens out into a vast, static, either silent self, and communicate with oneself, which is in all, self of others also. Well, either a vast universalization or psychicization takes place, or a dynamic descent takes place. The second way is that higher consciousness descends by the rending of the veil. When the veil is rent, the higher is able to enter and descend into the human consciousness. So, by a descent of light, power, and knowledge from above, or by rending of the veil and opening out into universal consciousness, where one becomes capable of knowing the subliminal parts of one's own being and subliminal movements of universal nature. So, in this transition from mind to the supermind, then how does it work out? From mind to the supermind, if you work out now, it will be, we take mind here and you take supermind here. So, from mind, the first level will be higher mind. The second layer will be, what is it? Illumined mind. Third layer will be, yes, intuitive mind. Fourth will be overmind. And overmind will directly put in contact, because that is the corona of the supermind, you see. So you are in the already, when you get into the overmind, you are in the corona, you see. That overmind, and that makes a contact with the supermind, you see. That's how it goes. Higher mind, illumined mind, intuitive mind, overmind. This layer, we divide this like that. When mind ascends a little or allows the higher consciousness to descend, how does it feel? How does it know, this higher mind? First, that there is no thinking. In the higher mind, one doesn't say, I want to know. No. When there is something, it is put, and answer is come. That's all. So that it is like like coming down of knowledge, rather than darkness trying to pierce into light. No, it is light coming down, more or less, like a sea-like downpour of mass of spontaneous knowledge, as he puts it. which assumes the nature of thought when it comes to the mind. When it comes down to mind, it becomes a thought. But it comes down like an illumination, like light. Higher mind does not ratiocinate, does not think, does not, proceed from no knowledge to acquiring knowledge. It is as if knowledge is coming down. That is the nature of it. No labor of speculation and no automatic. It is no difficulty of thinking or labor of speculation. It is an automatic and spontaneous knowledge coming down. If you take sun, he himself gives here the idea. If you take sun as the aspect of the truth, higher mind would be like steady sunshine. Steady sunshine coming down all the time. That will be the nature of the higher mind. The next would be the illumined mind. Mind in which it is completely illumined by the light of the higher consciousness over mind. Well, there you find lightnings and flaming sun stuff coming down all the time, as if the body of the sun was throwing out lightning, and constant operation of solar lightning. Body fully illumined, full of power and knowledge combined, is all the time present in the illumined mental consciousness. In the intuition, the third stage in which you reach the intuitive consciousness, you see, people forget that intuition, when it works in mind, intuition can work in their life, intuition can work in the body. Intuitive consciousness is felt by even men in this normal operation, but it is not intuitive plane of consciousness. You understand? It is intuition coming down, and intuition can come in mind, intuition come in emotional being, intuition can come in the vital being, intuition come in the nervous being, intuition can come to the physical being. In fact, many people know many things by intuition in ordinary life, without thinking, without reasoning, without cause. They simply have the knowledge. That is the operation of this plane of being penetrating into the mind or into the life or into the physical, consciousness. It is not that they have risen to the intuitive consciousness, and intuitive level is an independent level of consciousness above mind, which can be steadily attained, in which one can constantly live, just as one lives in the mind. If one develops in spiritual life or consciously develops the intuitive consciousness, he can constantly live in intuition only. It's not necessary to come back and live in the mind. I'm pointing it out because people have a wrong idea of the intuitive level of consciousness and intuition working in normal nature of man. Intuition does work in the normal nature of man in his mind. Mind often receives intuition about knowledge or action, or emotional being or vital being receives very often guidance from inside by a voice or by a suggestion or by some explanation which comes down intuitively into being. Or a discrimination works about 5 or 6 things presented to the human being, out of which he has to make one choice, and all the alternatives are of equal intellectual value. You see, there are occasions when one is faced with a situation in which he has to judge, and it is very difficult for mind to judge, because all the causes which make you decide in favor of one are equally strong in favor of the other. If the causes are 50-50, whether one should do this or not do this, or whether one should select this or choose this thing or not choose this thing, well, if the pros and cons are equally divided or equally forceful, well, mind is finding very difficult to decide on the plane of mind only. Well, what decides 9 times out of 10 is intuition, that this I choose. Well, that operates in normal consciousness. But if one attains the intuitive consciousness, then all works of the consciousness that are done can be all intuitive and not necessarily intellectual. The coming down of intuition is not a attainment of the intuitive consciousness. That's all that I want to stress. Now, on the intuitive consciousness, you will see that the thought is charged with truth, vision of truth also. The sensation that comes also carries the truth with it. Feeling that comes is truth, charged with truth. Action that one does is also goaded by or inspired by truth. And it all the time, shows that it is, as it were, there is a direct contact of the truth consciousness all the time operating in and throwing its light into mind. You see, it is the edge of the sun, so to say. It is the last edge of the sun operating where the mind has come in contact with the edge of the sun and constantly is living in the light, whether it is thought or feeling or emotion or vital sensation or you say something, physical or action of the outside nature of man. Intuition establishes a constant contact with the truth consciousness, you see, through, of course, indirect agency of the intuitive plane and operation of the overmind consciousness, which is a corona, carrying all the light of the truth consciousness. And this light is the edge. This intuitive plane is the edge of the sun, so to say. The corona comes to an end there, and you all the time live in it, therefore, you are living constantly in contact with the truth consciousness indirectly. Well, then you come into the overmind consciousness, and then you find that this overmind consciousness is not individual. The moment you get into overmind consciousness, the first thing you realize is it is no one man's consciousness. It is global. So far as intuitive consciousness is concerned, you may say that it is working in you. You might feel that you are there all the time in intuitive plane, you see. But as soon as you get into overmind, well, you are not in your individual station. You immediately feel a vast cosmic expansion of consciousness. It feels as if light is covering the whole world, whole cosmos. The sunlight is holding the whole world within its light, and you don't feel that you are there as an individual. It is the sunlight, and infinite cosmic consciousness is there, and it covers the whole lower hemisphere of this knowledge and ignorance, mind, life, and body, or matter, life, and mind, and establishes a link with the truth consciousness. It is that which makes a connection between the supermind and the lower creation of mind, life, and matter. You see? So that supermind is like, as he puts it nicely, covers with its wing the whole triple creation of mind, life, and matter. It is not individual in that sense, it is cosmic. It veils also the face of the higher from sight of the lower. In one sense, it brings the light, in another sense, it closes the light. You see? From the low, you can't see the face of the truth, you see only the face of the overmind. So that it acts as a barrier, and this is what the Upanishad refer to as light is covered by a higher light, golden light, you see. Yes, yes, one layer covers, the truth is covered, you see, by the golden lid, the face of the truth is covered, is it not? Face of the truth is covered by the golden lid. Well, this is the golden lid. You don't see that it is dark, it is light, and it covers the whole cosmos, and globes it, as he calls it, like wing of a vast, it is a, what is that bird? What do you call it? An eagle, you see, a cosmic eagle covering with its wing the whole triplicity, the lower mind, life, and matter, with its light. So that when you see that light first and not the light with which it connects you when you reach there. When you reach the overmind consciousness, it puts you directly in contact with the overmind consciousness. But when you see from below, it seems as if it is shutting off the higher light from you. So that in one sense it acts as a step of descent, in another it acts as a step of ascent. You see, for the supermind, it is a convenient step to step down. From the mind, it is a convenient step to step up. You see, both ways it divides the two worlds of the truth and ignorance. You see, light and darkness. Yes, it intervenes with its flood of infinite possibilities. What is the form of this overmind consciousness? Infinite divine possibilities, and all possibilities given equal chance of self-realization. In the supermind, all are certainties. You see? But here you get a field of flood of infinite possibilities. It becomes therefore an obstacle and a passage. An obstacle to our seeking, because when you go, you feel infinite possibilities. That is why, as he said in Life Divine, I think at another place, that Shankaracharya, called the higher Maya also Maya, because it was full of infinite potentialities and all the possibilities. When you see that if in the infinite all is possible, then what is certain? You see, that made him feel that the nature of the higher power also was avidya, you see, Maya, illusory. There was no a decisive, self-determinative truth consciousness at work. This was a great miss. It was an unfortunate mistake or unfortunate misinterpretation where he mistook the overmind Maya for the truth consciousness, supermind. There is a determinative and decisive action of the supreme consciousness. The world is not left to chance, and world is not left to a play only of infinite potentialities or possibilities. Through the play, a definite decisive movement is acting all the time. Of all the possibilities, there are possibilities that are approved and sanctioned by a supreme truth consciousness. Only they are allowed to happen. They are allowed to materialize. All possibilities, because they are charged with truth, well, all they make up the universe. When all the potentialities try, they only make up the complex of forces. But the result in the play of complex of forces is what is decided. Is not left to play of possibilities only, that you can never know. No, the possibility is fixed, and that becomes a certainty. The choice of the supermind becomes the last determination on the plane of matter. Just as on the end, matter is determinative quantitatively and qualitatively. You can know, you see, one certainty about matter is that you can depend upon it. It is like an omnipotent thing, is it not? You can be sure that if this is done, this result must come. Well, the same is on the other end of evolutionary light, spirit. This is the end of matter, where a definite determination is at work. So imperative that you can say it is omnipotent. So imperative that you can say it is omnipotent. Matter seems to be omnipotent so far as material constitution is concerned and material results are concerned, is it not? Yes. On the other side, if you go on the supreme, well, then there also a determination is at work which can make you see or feel that a determination which is omnipotent is at work. Two omnipotent ends we can see in the extension of the substance which is manifested in the cosmos, supreme spirit and matter. Matter on one end is decisive, and though apparently ignorant, yet seems charged with knowledge and will, with omnipotence. Other end of the evolutionary rung of ladder, the spirit, in the supermind, is again omnipotence and omniscience working, and there is a definite determination at work. Well, here, overmind is delegate of the supramental consciousness. It's a delegate to ignorance here, and a delegate to this to the higher consciousness. To ignorance, well, it is by projection of this luminous overmind corona that the diffusion of the diminished light in the ignorance and the throwing of that contrary shadow which swallows up in itself all the light, the inconscient, became at all possible. By this gradual shading of the light of the overmind corona, that the phenomenon of inconscience becomes a possibility and a certainty. So, if you take supermind and overmind, if you take the two together, well, you have some sort of rapport or a connection or a sort of a correspondence. If you take supermind and if you take overmind, then you will see the two have a sort of a difference and an agreement. This is holds the essential truth of being. This holds the essential truth. Here, the integrality of the truth is absent. Truth is present, but integrality of the truth is present and not present. Here, the essential truth is completely held. The truth of the total, that is to say, integral. You see? And this is clearly one and many are held together here in clarity, in complete clarity. Here, well, it uses the individual self-determination of all, self-determination. Here, this self-determination without being limited by any other determination. So, number of self-determinations are at work at the same time. Here, the total is held together, and complete free interpenetration and unity of one and many, basing itself on the infinite. You see, one and many, and therefore a free interchange and mixing of the whole working out in the supramental truth consciousness. Total and individual determinations are held together. The all and the one and the many, they are held together in clarity, in complete, incomparable unity, and yet close interpenetration, free and full consciousness allowed to each other. The total one is free and full, each is again free and full in the supermind. In the overmind, the integrality is not present. It is aware of the truth. So overmind is conscious of the infinity and integrality, uses this individual self-determination without being limited. But each aspect and each power is given an independent action. In the overmind, each is given an independent action to realize it, which acquires a separate importance. Each potentiality becomes separately important. For instance, one take Purush Prakriti. In the supermind, Purusha Prakriti are one, a single truth, two aspected. You see, one aspect here in the supermind, you see Purush Prakriti, the subjective consciousness and the executive power. Purush Prakriti are, so to say, one, two aspected. One aspect is on this side, another aspect this side, Purusha and Prakriti. But the thing is one. Here, there is already Purusha and Prakriti. Not completely divided, but you see, it is not that unity on which they are proceeding. The basis is independence is given to Purusha, independence is given to Prakriti. The nature part, you see. Yes. Being and dynamics, for instance. The being consciousness and flow or movement, dynamics, is one. Here, Purusha and Prakriti in the overmind become separate, dealing with each other. They are able to deal with each other, they know each other, can have relation with each other, but they are not one, you see, two aspects of one entity, inseparable in their essence. In the supermind, the real idea holds the whole thing one and total. Whereas here in the overmind, millions of possibilities are released into action and each empowered to create its own world, capable of relation and interplay, even communicating with others, but charged with an idea or force to realize itself. In the supermind, say for instance, if democracy was there, it will not go against equality. In the supramental truth consciousness is the basis of what is democracy in the mind, because really speaking, there is no democracy in the supermind. But the basis of democracy in the supermind and base of equality, there will be no contradiction. But here, when it drops in the overmind, the idea of democracy will be allowed to work separately. Idea of equality will be allowed to work out separately, and then it naturally, at the beginning, they all know that ultimately the truth is one, but still, when it actually drops into mind and into life, well, it goes on dividing more and more, is it not? It can come in conflict, in fact, in life. Yeah. That's what creates conflict in life, you see. That is that. The unity being lost of the origin, then it becomes parent of division, parent of ignorance, you see. Yes. Overmind at one evening talk, he finally explained to us when we asked him that you till now said about the supermind and now you say it is overmind, and how is that to be set right with what you said before? So he said overmind is not division yet. It is like a bundle of many seeds which you hold. It is one. He said it is like a bundle of, said, million seeds you hold in one bundle. So the bundle is one. Overmind is one. Now, if million seeds are let, naturally they all, tend to divide, you see, and they each become something separate in itself. Well, it is not yet division, but it holds all the potentiality of division within itself. It's like a packet, a packet of seeds, yes. The real idea in the overmind gets broken up into many sides and each independent, into million forces, not only ideas. There in the supermind, the force and consciousness is one. Consciousness and force is one in the supermind, but in the overmind, the force and consciousness become divided into many, many forces and, many consciousnesses, so to say. And now you take up the distinction between mind and overmind. If you take, this is what you saw about the supermind. If you take mind and overmind, and now you take up the distinction between mind and overmind. If you take, this is what you saw about the supermind. If you take mind and overmind and Purani, there you find a distinction again in one. In the overmind, what to the mind is irreconcilable. Opposites, is it not? The differences are opposites, you see. Irreconcilable differences becomes your coexistence, coexistent, correlative. What to the mind is contraries become in the overmind complementaries. See? Well, in the mind, if you take matter or life, each separate, completely divided from the rest. In the overmind, well, each is true. Here, each is excluded, you can say, from the other. Here, each is true and includes the other. Of mind and each is ignorant of the other in the lower. Life is not ignorant of mind. Life is ignorant of mind. Mind is ignorant of life. You see, mind and life do not know each other in the lower mental consciousness, but in the overmind, each knows the other. In the lower, mind does not know life. Life does not know mind. Of course, there is no question of matter knowing anything because mind does not see that matter knows anything. So there is a complete division between the mind, life, and matter in the lower mind, in the lower ignorance. Whereas in the overmind consciousness, there is no exclusiveness because each knows the other. Overmind, therefore, is a principle of cosmic truth. All dynamisms as well as separate dynamisms are present. A total dynamism and each dynamism. Its comprehension is global rather than integral. You see, inclusive rather than, well, taking up the synthesis of what is happening. It includes that without the principle of integration, without the principle of bringing it into a organization conforming to the central truth. Its totalities are global wholes, not organized integrated wholes. For instance, he says, all religions would be true. In this overmind, all religions would be true. because they will say it's a expression of one religious impulse. So in the overmind, all religions should be true. In the supermind, when that truth is presented, well, perhaps some religions might be thrown out as not true. You see, from the supramental point of view, not true here in the from the overmind, it will be true. For instance, from the point of view of overmind, all religions would be perhaps true, a development of an eternal religion. No superior and no exclusive right to be true. All would be necessary to the whole in the overmind. And when it comes down to the mind, then you know what happens to this idea of all being true, you see. Overmind, therefore, can be said to be a play of possibilities of knowledge, a power which makes ignorance possible, which makes, because the play of possibility promotes this less knowledge and therefore, well, makes ignorance possible, in one sense inevitable when it goes further and further from the central truth, till it leads to the fragmentation in the inconscient. And the one total truth is concealed by this fragmentation, by this breaking up into small parts. The one is concealed in the inconscient. Is there even in matter, in the fragmentation. And yet, underlying this separation, there is oneness. That is what makes you capable of dealing with matter on a basis matter was one. In spite of all elements and atoms being completely divided and separate, still the unity is there. Underlying oneness drives towards harmony. The underlying oneness on each plane is making for harmony. So that even when fragmentation and division has taken place, the division is not allowed completely to isolate, you know, things from each other, but division is made to make an effort for realizing the harmony and unity, because unity is there at the basis. The oneness is there. That is why you find in animals or in, in elements effort at aggregation, coming together. In the element, the herd instinct, and so on. The drive of unity is there visible. Harmony with the rest of existence is underlying. Harmony is trying to come to surface. In the supermind, to the overmind, to the mind, between supermind and overmind, the veil is transparent. The veil is transparent. Overmind all the time depends upon the supermind for whatever force, knowledge, power, or potentiality it receives. And when it comes to the mind, the veil becomes thicker. Same. In the mind, the veil becomes a little more thick. When further up, well, each thing becomes completely separate. Even in mind, the ignorance is not complete. Ignorance is not complete because division is not carried out to the last. Mind is capable of unities and, conceptions of wholes in which many finites are included. You see, the complete division comes when it sinks into inconscience of matter. And because mind is not completely ignorant, it becomes possible in mind to organize some kind of right relation and organization of elements and of things which mind acquires, the knowledge of which mind acquires. Mind we have called limited knowledge, or you can call it ignorance, but it is not false knowledge or error. See, the basis is not false. The whole outlook which some of the philosophies and religion have cultivated is that mind is absolutely something to be, well, looked down upon or abandoned or something all the time creative of falsehood. See, and those shows clearly how mind becomes only a shade of the higher life, you see, the higher light, the higher consciousness. It is a distortion or a sort of intervention of a veil rather than creation of something which is contrary to the original reality. It does not create something contrary to the original reality. It's a complete, and the complete separation takes place when it descends into matter. And when it descends even into matter, it's not an illusion. There also, it's not completely illusory. And overmind communicates with the organized mind through intuition, through intimations of the mind, through light that comes to the mind, through mind trying to universalize itself by its effort at discovery and finding out the truths, by its seeking for truth. It is rewarded by the overmind by giving it first knowledge of the one, knowledge of the whole, and application in power, which makes the mind go further and further toward the light. So that a complete separation, even in matter, does not make the whole process illusory. Over mind, through intuition and through other intimations in the mind, well, puts the flashes of light into the lower, and they do come through the ignorant consciousness even of mind, only they were intermittent. Even now, intuitions, overmind and supermind are working, only their action in the present constitution of man is concealed. And the process for problem for man is to make it conscious. So that is ascend from mind to the higher mind, illumined mind, intuitive mind, overmind, and supermind. That seems to be the rung of the ladder to reach the truth consciousness. That is a problem, and it can be solved by rending the veil by going inside or by possibility of descent to the higher consciousness into the present constitution of man. That finishes the first part of life. One more chapter we shall, one more subject we shall take, but not of the text. It is an independent subject which answers the present position of intellect, that by intellect, science, and ethical endeavor, problem of man could be solved. We will take up that only and end this part of the work. Afterwards, when some of the subjects are taken up, we will take up 3 or 4 questions from the life divine, origin of ignorance, or the creation of centers of light in life and the process and so on. 1 or 2 or 3 questions we'll take up. But as this basis is laid down, it makes now the problem comparatively easier to follow, you see, once, because the basis of understanding is there now, that establishes the basis of life divine.
Ronnie, would you mind is to make it conscious?
Yes, yes.
That's the next
Now it is a concealed.
Yes.
Huh?
I have rend the veil, and man has to rend the veil, or what is the other?
There are 2 processes. One is rending the veil and entry within, and rending the veil, or by allowing a descent of the higher consciousness to take place. It takes place either from above or by rending the veil and entering into it, so to say.
It be a trap too, can it?
It can, if one.
Well, I'm thinking of the masters that are teaching,
Yes, of course.
and they see the whole, and I don't think they have the supermind, and then they're in the overmind.
Yes,
I'm
naturally.
thinking of Paul Brunton too.
Not only Paul Brunton, you can think of it does all. You see, in the overmind, for instance, in the mind, you cannot conceive of. This is what one evening talk also he said, you see, that take complete silence and absolute activity. Now, to the mind, not at all reconcilable. So, in the overmind, they all can meet together. Both are allowed to independent operation. Being one of the possibilities of infinite, each is allowed in independent movement. They coexist there. They are one in the supermind, but they coexist in the overmind. In the same way, one of the men who happens to contact this content of the personal aspect of the divine, or he has taken up the collective aspect of the divine, well, he stresses that anything, this is the truth and this is the only thing. But he forgets that the collective aspect is not the only one. The individual aspect also has a truth of its own. Therefore, to take the global view of the truth that is operating, a higher truth, is a rare phenomenon, very rare. Even among people who have some contact with the cosmic consciousness or some contact with the infinite consciousness. even when they have established their own nature, their own constitution, their way of understanding, without their ascent into those levels, well, whatever contact is, some light is coming down and some rays penetrate and mind makes something out of it. Says, I am the avatar, I am the light, and I must embody. And the truth is that I am God. There is somebody in America who was going about gathering people and saying, I am a God. Is it not? John somebody or something was there? Yes, he had a big following. Yes, yes.
You can find anything in America.
That in India also. There are 14 avatars in India, don't worry. World will not be in trouble because there are 14 incarnations trying to save it.
We got it saved over here, though. We've quit trying. We've got it done.
One day I had two people tell me you're the incarnation of Jesus. Absolute. They're absolutely sure.
Yes.
Absolutely sure. Know it for sure.
Yeah.
Where did that happen?
Right here, right. And very sincere. And they have spiritual experience.
Yes, that's what happens.
I must be an incarnation of the devil.
In the overmind, all religions will be true. And
Yes,
then I have what you said about the mind, but I don't have what you said about the supramental. That would give me a feeling of it.
Yes.
You know, overmind, all religions will be true. In the supramental,
Well, perhaps the very origin of religion will be known. The very origin of what becomes religion to man is the fire, divine fire, you see. One will only know what is at the back of all religions, you see. There will be no all religions, but the root of all religions, so to say, which is the divine fire, you see, which descends in man and becomes the fire. So that in the supermind, it will be only fire.
the higher you go, the more intense, in other words, isn't it? The more intense, and the more concentrated, the more
Yes.
intense, the
Yes.
higher you go.
Intense the aspiration, you mean? Or intense the working?
Just that it's more concentrated, and so that it's more intense, and say the vibrations are more intense with it.
Yes, and also not only intense, but remember, it is a double process of intensity and wideness happening at the same time. Because in intensity there is a kind of idea that it comes to a point. No, in this process, the intensity increases and the wideness increases, unlimited, infinite. It is terrific.
In other words, the nearer you get to the sun, the hotter.
Yeah, that's it. You have the fear of being burnt completely. That's it. The fear of complete annihilation of the self, which is necessary.
Of course, I don't know Italian now.
Here only it is concealed, and in some cases there is a chink and it penetrates and you see the light.
But I think in
Hundreds of cases it has happened, not one or two. There are hundreds of cases there is a penetration of light because some opening in the emotion, some opening in the vital or mind, or some psychic being, pushing the vein, so to say, and immediately something comes through. Then afterwards it gets again clouded because you see the human being does not make that as his chief, point of business of life. We saw about that poet she was telling the other day. What was that poet? Browning. Now certainly Browning was a man who had some opening, but it must have been clouded over afterwards. You see, life is like that. That the opening remains for some time, or when he writes poem, perhaps the opening comes back partially, and he works under that pressure of inspiration. Now afterwards it closes. There are many like that,
When
many.
a person receives illumination overmind,
Who?
when a person receives illumination,
Hmm.
is that the working of the overmind? Is that-
Not in all cases. It might be only intuition. It might be illumined mind. It may be higher mind. Overmind is very rare. Very rare. Some operation of the overmind one may feel, but not overmind itself. Overmind is overwhelmingly wide, you see. Would be a complete, widening of consciousness. And
Well, aren't there different stages of illumination?
yes, that's it. You from the mind you go to the higher mind, illumined mind, intuitive mind, and overmind. That's how you generally progress. You see.
Is cosmic consciousness?
Yes,
Is that overload?
it is cosmic in the sense that it is cosmic, not completely lost contact with the light yet. Because cosmic consciousness, when it becomes mental in the mind, it becomes double play of knowledge and ignorance, light and darkness. When overmind enters the mental belt, so to say, and it becomes a mental overmind or mental, world or universe, then that mental universe is a double play of light and darkness. But in the overmind, it is connected always with the supermind, and therefore the light is not lost to the overmind in the cosmic consciousness of the overmind, and therefore you can say that it is, well, cosmic consciousness that has not yet become darkened. Cosmic consciousness in light. Because there is a cosmic consciousness possible to realize, which is a mixture of light and darkness. And indeed, many of the people who realize are, subject to that double play without knowing how to get into the play of the overmind. Even then, that always constantly the connection with the truth is there. And then you can hit upon some truth if you are sincere about finding the truth only. But if one is satisfied with the mental cosmic consciousness of the mind or cosmic mind, then it's a double play of light and darkness. Cosmic mind allows any number of world forces to act. It will allow democracy or capitalism, it will allow communism at one point to operate at the same time. Because for cosmic mind, all possibilities are there of light and darkness. And by a struggle of the two, something that is intended in the overmind and supermind is worked out.
I was thinking of this book by Buck, you probably know,
Yes,
called Cosmic Consciousness. And he speaks of many people who had this experience
Yes,
of light.
yes.
Well, I was just wondering if that experience of light
Yes.
was what you're calling cosmic.
Yes, I have some talk about it in the evening talks. You read that and you'll see.
Yeah.
Cosmic Consciousness of Perlberg. Yes, in the evening talk, we had talked about this Perlberg book.
No.
And this Dr. Buck.
Yes.
And you will find Sri Arunda's comment on that in the evening talk.
Yes.
He refused to admit his generalization that cosmic consciousness must be like that and must be short only. It can't last for long. And by this process only it will be, and it will feel only as all this. That is too much of generalization. That is not true. But the fact is true. What he writes is a fact that
Yes.
many people have the contact of cosmic consciousness up till now. And he has tried to assign. From that, then he makes a generalization,
Yes.
which he says is not right.
In that book, Evening Talk, is a disciple, are those all your questions, or is it just your book that is recording on the different disciples?
There were different disciples. Many of them were put by some of us. 2 or 3 were chief. I myself and 1 or 2 more. The rest didn't much participate in the talks, you see. Sometimes Nalini did, and Kiti Dutt, who died, he did, and Moni Suresh Chakravarti, he participated with 3 or 4 of us, and the people who mainly talked.
Purani, are you going to tell us more sometime of your personal, I mean, not personal experience, but experiences with Aurobindo?
Yes.
Are you going to tell us more
Yes,
about
we can
later
have
on?
some time. Yes, why not?
I thought maybe that was in the program, but I didn't know. I was hoping.
Who is Sankaracharya? Sankaracharya?
Yes, yes. Came after the Buddhistic period in India in the 8th century. He was in the 8th century, born in South India, Malaya. And he was a precocious young boy when he went from childhood. So by 8 or 9, he was already full of all this knowledge of Sanskrit and the things to be known. He died before 32. By 33, he was dead. Okay. And before that, he revolutionized the whole intellectual and philosophical thought of India. He undertook a journey on foot to the north and across Jagannath and you see the west and eastern and the north, and he organized this Vedanta, what they call the monism. You see, school of monism in which he posited that infinite reality is the ultimate truth and that world is a secondary reality of a second order. And world being illusory, therefore, the purpose of this creation is to rise to or merge into the infinite. You see, he didn't posit any positive fulfillment on earth, but he didn't reduce, according to my study, the whole world to non existence. It is illusion, he said. And the purpose of this illusion is to make us rise to the reality, that's all. The weak point that was in his thesis, two or three. One point is that it doesn't explain the relation between God and creation. He only put absolute, or he did admit a God as responsible for creation. But the purpose of the human individual was to merge into the absolute. Now there is a sort of a contradiction because if God is there in between, how is the individual to merge into the absolute without intervention of God? And God must carry out in his management of the universe something that was already in the reality. That is what Shirondo is telling. But he did not admit, you see, God he brought in more or less to explain the universe and man. Because Brahman could not have created the world. There is no impulse in the infinite to create, or absolute doesn't want to create anything. So the first projection of it in the Maya, in his own illusory nature, was God. So God himself was in a self a half true projection of the Supreme, half true in the sense that he is able to manage this illusion. He is able to manage it, you see. But the purpose is that out of illusion, all souls that are manifested must merge again into the absolute. Now that makes also the purpose of the manifestation, in sort of futile. Thirdly, it doesn't explain the phenomena of avatarhood, the incarnations. If the world is an illusion, why should the divine incarnate and try to come to the world and save it? The illusion is not necessary to be saved. The illusion is to be, liquidated more or less. Why should the avatar come and confirm man into life? If life was an illusion, world was an illusion, you see. So that sort of weak points are there in Shankar's outlook. It reduces God to a very position in which God's whole definition goes, not very correct, because omnipotence, omniscience, and omnipresence, if you give somebody that, he will not resign easily. Even the absolute will not be able to take away his power. He will say, I am omniscient. So he will intervene with effect. And God has to be given an effective control into the business of the management of the cosmos. And it is Srirunda's outlook that gives you the correct basis of the God's place in the universe, because God is nothing else but the organization of that self-existent in a self-aware attitude, taking up its own inner creation as truth consciousness. That is God. And it is that which has become all that. So that the immanence of God, also omnipresence, is philosophically made very clear. I mean, there is no clearer position of an omnipresent reality than Srirunda's presentation. I don't think there is anywhere more cogent and more rational and convincing explanation if you grant consciousness or being or spirit as the basis of the whole universe. It is the most consistent explanation.
Well, an organic synthesis in this respect that it its own life and image, and we evolve from one stage to another, and the light comes down, of course, he's convoluted. And I don't think you can think of it in much of any other way and get, unless you want to get kind of lost, because the supermind is so colossal and quite removed from our ordinary comprehension. so far that we have to believe that it exists there and that it.
No, though we believe it on a more positive evidence within ourselves. The aspiration for perfection. You forget about supermind. Unless when you want to explain the whole universe to you from the base of God, then supermind will come in and say, I am here. But if you don't want to bother yourself and say, well, oh, supermind is too great, let it be there. Where is it here? Then you can say it is here in the form of your aspiration for perfection. Some kind of higher status of consciousness than what you are in. You can, if you are religious minded, you will say you want to realize God. If you have an ethical basis, you will say, I want to realize truth. If you are a social minded, you will say, I want to improve society. Is it not? You will say, I want to have self control, or I want to have this. Well, all that is an operation of that here. It is that which is working here in man and not allowing him to rest satisfied with what he is now. You see, and he will not be allowed to rest satisfied till he makes an effort. So the short way is to answer the demand of the supermind by making the effort. Then the whole of it will be supporting you. Yeah, that's wonderful. That's what Sri Aurobindo and Mother say. That you won't be alone. When you have the flame is rising, the whole of the solar light is behind you. So then you will be supported, and you will create here help in creating here a new world based on truth, based on the light. Life will be moving round not money, but round truth, round divine consciousness, round perfection, which is necessary and very badly needed. Because there is the one thing that is lacking in the whole progress of man, so called. He doesn't think of perfection at all. He thinks of acquisition and finding out more means of making himself comfortable till he becomes a slave of what he creates, and slave of all the instruments that he has created. He is busy only more and more creating, so that he may be more and more subject. So there is no end to this chain, a vicious chain.
One very helpful means to try to see the truth or the one in oneself and in all.
Yes, yes. First to begin with yourself.
Yes.
Yes. Rather than busy yourself with others. Because that is a general impulse of man, because mind is always an outgoing instrument and sense is also. So the first thing one gets the idea is, let me make everybody else perfect. Then we must change the world. And he has pointed out very little work. Change, begin with yourself. That's all. One must begin with oneself, and all the world will begin to change from one end. You see, that is the end. Small, and then you build a brick by brick by brick, then the whole building will come. But if that is not there, nothing. Nothing will happen.
You also said that is quite enough.
Yes, I think it is.
Somewhere to try to see the one in all.
Yes, yes. If all impinge on your consciousness, you reduce them to the one and deal with them first, and forget what they are, because then there will be always problems.
I know all about that. That is.
We see the sun, but I don't think many of us, unless we're scientifically trained, have any idea of what the sun does to this earth in photosynthesis alone.
Yes,
the trees, in the radiation of energy, and how it affects our organisms, human organisms.
it's the source of all life. Even science has to admit it's the source of all life. Even pure material science has to admit that that is the source of all life. Only they are afraid that it will one day go out. Which I don't believe, but still they believe that one day it will be completely, it will be, put out of action. They are looking to that time. I don't think the time is rather far.
There may be some, maybe some connection, a brief connection in between the supermind and the sun.
Yes, yes, the sun is the material symbol of the supermind. That's quite true. Sun is the symbol of the supermind in matter. Quite correct. That is why people worship the sun. Not this only, but because it represents that. The Parsis, the Zoroastrians, and in many religions there is sun worship. You see, in India also, in the Veda also, the sun is worshipped. It is the symbol of illumination of knowledge. It's a material representative or symbol of the supermind. Admitted as the origin of all life, even by science. They can't get out of that fact. And one astronomical student for astronomy conference was there, and then the astronomers were discussing. Somebody said that the sun will go out after so many million light years. And another, light year is a year in which the light travels in 1 second, 186,000 miles. In 1 second. Now calculate 1 year. That's 1 light year. And some million light years. So one old dame was sitting there in the meeting and she said, "What is the discussion about?" They said that the sun will be out. Oh, I said, when? Said that he says that it will be so many million light years, and this man says, no, not so many, a few years less. So what's the light year? She asked. Oh, he said, there is no hurry about it. It's all right. Don't we need not be worried. It's, it's all right. We needn't be worried about the fate of sun.